and say all things were equal, and suddenly tomorrow we became the best police department in America. How does that impact a young man who has grown up for 17 or 18 years learning how to hate, learning how to not respect his own life, learning how not to respect someone else's life, and then commits the typical murder in New Orleans? And that's 4 things. I knew the guy, I was mad at him, I looked for him, I killed him.
Lowering New Orleans' murder rate is the city's priority. The mayor's plan weaves health, education, recreation, and violence interruption into the equation, and it prompted the police chief to change the department.
We didn't have very good systems of policies anymore, and the policies were being ignored. We didn't have a good distribution plan of how to fight crime, how to distribute the resources against crime fighting. We didn't even have really good modern-day analytic packages to tell us about crime fighting and the intelligence that comes from that. So we had to rebuild the department, if you will.
Police Superintendent Ronal Serpas invited the Department of Justice to team homicide experts from around the nation to help NOPD recreate its homicide division. Their 82-point plan took all of 2011 to put in place.
It included building the homicide detectives into the community policing model with extra officers and have them be in the neighborhood meetings, going out and meeting people before a homicide ever happens.
Well, we did have a couple of callbirds. That's why we're trying to get the message out.
The most important thing we had to rebuild in our police department, and we're still doing it every day, is the connections to the neighborhoods.
A lot of the rebuilding the city wanted to do, but even more of it New Orleans is forced to do, since Mayor Mitch Landrieu, just days after taking office, invited the Department of Justice to investigate the NOPD. DOJ's report in March 2011 cited 16 major problem areas with 140 specifics to correct.
New Orleans police engaged in a pattern or practice of conduct that was both discriminatory and unconstitutional, and that too often undermined the public's trust and the city's efforts to effectively prevent crime.
The result? A 129-page consent decree in July of 2012, in which the city agreed to fix what the Justice Department found wrong.
This agreement is the most widespread, wide-ranging in the department's history, and requires the New Orleans Police Department to implement and to sustain a variety of new policies and practices related to training, the use of force, stops, searches, and arrests, sexual assault and domestic violence investigations, investigative and interrogative techniques, community policing, officer supervision, officer recruitment, officer assistance, and more.
What it means is, for the first time truly in the history of the city of New Orleans, there will be some independent authority that will have the power of the federal courts to look over the shoulder of the police department and make sure that what the police department and the Justice Department have agreed to as the changes and reforms that need to be made are actually put in place. The city is going to have to pay for an independent monitor to oversee this contract, to make sure that the police department is implementing and adhering to all of these terms. The real tale of the tape is going to be after the consent decree is over. Are these reforms going to be a part of the culture, ingrained in the culture of the department, so that we maintain the changes that we're going to put in place over the next 3 to 7 to 10 years?
Gives a glimmer of hope in light of all the criminal activity that went on through Katrina, that the Justice Department came in, prosecuted a lot of folks who were responsible for that. And it's kind of like this window of opportunity. Hopefully this consent decree that was just signed off on by the Justice Department in the city kind of like gets us to the reform that this city needs.
Serpas says NOPD has already acted on more than 40% of the requirements of the consent decree, including upgrading standards for police recruits. New applicants must have 60 hours college credit or 2 years successful military service. The first graduates on Serpas's watch each had 200 hours more training than recruits before he was chief. The police department was ahead of the Justice Department planning performance-based evaluations for officers.
The thing that the civil service system in New Orleans protects brilliantly and at all cost and at all expense is breathing. If you come to work and breathe, you got a job. No way. That's got to go. We want to be the Southwest Airlines of policing. We want to be the police department that says to our employees through evaluation systems that we're creating now, you will be recognized and rewarded because you treat people first as if they were your customer.
Under the consent decree, officers will be required to receive more training on searches, arrests, and use of force. All interrogations that take place in a police facility or involving homicides and sexual assaults must be videotaped, and cameras will be rolling in each patrol car. The agreement implements an early warning system to identify problem officers, and it puts major restrictions on police working off-duty jobs.
So we have far too many people in business as opposed to being in the police business. And we thought, and the mayor obviously agreed, that the way to fix that was to sever that financial relationship between the police officer and the business interest and have the city be the booking agent and pay the police through the payroll system. That system can control it and keep it from being the poison that it has been to the NOPD. You can't have an effective police force with the current off-duty detail system because it corrupts the organization. With no effective police force, obviously we're not going to be very safe. We aren't safe right now. This is the most dangerous city in North America.
The Inspector General says while an independent monitor checks compliance with the consent decree, his office will be measuring NOPD as a department of government and how well it functions.
So we're going to go in and find out what kind of police department we have, what they do good and what they don't do so good.
The police chief says he is committed to concluding consent decree oversight in 4 years.
When people come to New Orleans who have no investment in this community other than to report to the federal judge, and they start telling the federal judge, Your Honor, the NOPD did this well. They've done that well. They've done this well. That positive affirmation is going to be like an uplifting stream for the men and women of the department and the people of New Orleans. Because I really believe this. We're not nearly as bad as people might think, but we're not nearly as good as we're going to be. We know we've made some horrible mistakes. But that wasn't me and that wasn't today. Now, our department needs to serve you. How can we get there? What do we got to do? In the end game, American policing is built on information. If people feel like they can tell me what happened in their neighborhoods, we can make magic happen, right?
Thank you very much.
You.
All right. Who that, huh?
Who that?